something inside, yeah, there's something inside that brings me back to you, yeah. No, I can't hide it, no, I can't hide it anymore.
Hello all, welcome to episode 0 of Plurality Posse. We are your hosts. I'm Scarlett.
And I'm Micah. This episode is going to be about interacting with and being friends with a plural system. We're mostly going to focus on DID systems, since we have a member of a DID system here.
Hello.
And yes, that is Scarlett. But this is also good advice for any system. DID is often comorbid with a lot of other mental illnesses, so we are also going to be touching on how to interact with people who have those conditions as well.
The key point of interacting with a DID system is to just treat each alter like an individual. It's pretty simple. You'd be friendly to every single person, hopefully. You would treat that person as an individual, I would hope. And that's really all most of us want. We just want to be recognized as our own person, or our own, if we're not human, our own wolf or dragon or whatever you may be. If they're kids, ask them their age and treat them accordingly. If they're non-human, just treat them as such, without talking down to them. No baby talk for animal alters that can frankly understand you and have the mental capacity of an adult or teenager. Talking down to animal alters can be quite demeaning sometimes, depending. It is certainly is a case-by-case basis, but I know, at least in our system, talking down to animal alters can be quite demeaning. But some of them like pets, some of them like, to be treated fairly, but as their own species. Oh, and don't forget to ask about and respect their pronouns. They could be they, them, especially if they're non-human. They could have different pronouns than what you might expect.
I was thinking on the first bullet point because I wanted to ask you a little bit more about animal alters, because I feel like if you've never met a system before, you've really never had the opportunity to talk to an animal that can understand English. So
this is true, actually.
That's definitely going to be a unique experience for someone. So any key points of advice to keep in mind? The difference between an animal alter and like an actual animal.
Right, so as far as animal alters go, it's really a case-by-case basis. Some can speak and some cannot. Or some have trouble speaking, perhaps. And most animal alters can understand the world around them at the capacity of a normal adult or teenager, as far as our system goes, as far as we've experienced. Of course, this does not mean every animal alter is the same way. If you want to treat an animal alter correctly, here are some things you can do. First off, if they like to be pet, you can ask them if they like to be pet, and if you are comfortable with that, you can, give them a couple pats on the head here and there. Sometimes animal alters will wear tails or ears, and you can compliment them. Hey, your fur looks really nice today. Hey, I love your ears. They're adorable. And of course, again, every system is different. Ask their preferences. That is a big important thing.
I think that's an important point for really anything, is to just ask.
Consent is key in every part of life.
Yes, ask and be respectful, and don't make any assumptions that you think would be taken wrong. I think it's important to mention animal alters are not just furries.
Yes, they aren't furries. They actually appear as animals in the head. For instance, our host actually looks like a gigantic black wolf. She is like 7 foot tall. It is huge.
It's kind of terrifying.
Yeah. Oh, another point to address is that as far as we have noticed, animal alters will often act like animals when angry. So again, using our host as an example, Ash will growl when they are angry. It's a sort of instinct for them. It's hard to control for them. Again, every system is different, but if you notice signs like that, either perhaps try and help calm them down or just let them work through it. I
think that's a really good point, and I think it makes a lot of sense that animal alter, when under a lot of stress, might resort to more instinctual behavior.
They can. As far as
because if you think about where that alter came from in the system's history,
yes, most animal alters are from an unfortunate reason, if they're from a traumatic system anyway. A lot of our alters anyway have trouble controlling those instincts when they are angry or sad or having some sort of extreme emotion. When they are happy and in control, they can usually control that a bit more and seem a bit more human outwardly.
Although Ash has told me that when they are very happy and excited, they might look like they're wagging their tail, although they won't have any in the body.
True. Our host also loves to display the wolfish side of them, to be fair. They just like to be cute, apparently.
Nothing wrong with that. Well, I think those are really good points. Especially because it's not really something that people are going to know unless they hear it from a system that has animal alters. So I think the next good thing to go over is what do you do if your friend who's from a system unexpectedly switches with someone else?
Right. So, first off, keep calm. Freaking out's just going to make things more confusing and scary. Sometimes, especially if there's amnesia between alters, switching is confusing and scary unless they immediately know where they are. Like, if it's somewhere they frequent quite a bit, they won't usually know where they are at first, and it can be quite confusing, and freaking out will just make that 100 times worse. It's really bad, and it's pretty normal well, I wouldn't call it normal, but for a system, switching is inevitable. It's going to happen. Well, most times. Again, every system is different, but I
think it's safe to say for a DID system, which we're mainly focusing on, that switches are going to happen because that's part of the disorder.
Especially when tensions are rising, when there's an extreme emotion, again, like fear, there will be unexpected switches, and there can be unexpected switches, or perhaps if there's a positive trigger out there that they didn't realize was a positive trigger, or they didn't realize was going to happen. So yes, keep calm. When the system starts to either notice you or get acquainted with their surroundings, just calmly ask them their name, and if you haven't met them yet, introduce yourself. I mean, it's always nice to have a friend around when you switch, especially if it's in an unknown place. If the alter barks or meows, they might be an animal alter and having trouble speaking, or might be too afraid to speak, or again, that goes back to instinctual things. if this is the case, you can ask them simple yes or no questions so that they can shake or nod their head, and or you could let them be to try and gauge emotion based on body language. And don't ever try to trigger someone else back in. That is a bad idea. That is a breach of trust. That is horrible. Don't do it. If you try to trigger someone else back in, that could be dangerous for a system, as the alter that you're triggering might freak out, or they could be a persecutor, or having a lot of stress, or, not be quite in the right state of mind to be keeping the body safe.
I think this is a really important point. Never ever try to trigger a switch in
It's
your
a
friend
horrible breach of
who's in a system. More than likely, you don't know what you're doing, and you probably won't be able to control it anyway. But it's just a horrible breach of trust. Yes, it's taking away a sense of control from the system, I would say.
Not only that, you could easily lose a friend because of it, because it is a breach of trust. It's horrible. You don't do it. And, of course, DID systems are not inherently violent. You just do not want to... If you don't know the alter, you do not necessarily want to meet them. They might not like you. They might be afraid of you because they might not trust people. That doesn't mean they're violent. That means that it's just not a good idea to, force them to meet you.
Yes, from what I've learned about DID systems, alters that are violent to outsiders are rare, if non-existent. The idea in media of the murderous sociopathic alter, it basically doesn't exist. But alters can be very violent and dangerous to other members of the system, and so triggering out an alter like that is still bad news.
Perhaps this is more related to mental illness in general. But when you're meeting an alter or a system in general, ask their permission before any kind of physical contact. Again, in every part of life, consent is key, and especially for DID systems, or even just mentally ill people, touch can be quite triggering and not very good. Also, don't sneak up behind people. That's, again, very, very bad. It could trigger something really bad, like PTSD, for instance. And loud noises could be a trigger too. You don't know. Don't try to try not to be too loud or sneak up behind people.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point.
Thank you.
Oh, I think that that's a very good point. DID tends to stem from trauma and has elements of PTSD along with it. But even for folks that don't have DID, but anxiety or PTSD or something along those lines, touch and loud noises are all very unpleasant and can trigger panic or switches in a system.
Also related to other mental illnesses, don't try to rationalize people out of anxiety or really any mental illness. Anxiety isn't rational. It tends to override logic, and while the person knows it's not rational, it's still a strong emotion. And so is really any other mental illness. Maybe it's not an emotion, but it's not usually rational to control.
Yeah, the worst thing you can say to someone with anxiety is, "Oh, don't worry about that." The worst thing you can say to someone with depression is, "Oh, just cheer up." Because they've probably tried that and it didn't work.
That's like telling someone who had their leg amputated to just grow it back. They're not a starfish.
That's a very good analogy, yes. So yeah, if someone is in the middle of a panic attack and if you just say, oh, it wasn't so bad, why are you freaking out about that? Don't. That doesn't help at all.
So, then how do you help a person with a panic attack?
Yes, how to help someone through a panic attack? I've had my share of those. I think it's important to stay with them, make sure that they're safe, and your presence will help them feel safe. If they're very insistent about you leaving, you should respect that, but if it's hard to tell, it's probably better to err on being there. If there's any sort of medication that they take while having a panic attack, do your best to help them take that. Don't make a lot of assumptions about what they need. If you've heard some weird common sense things like, oh, give them a paper bag to breathe in, or elevate their feet, anything like I don't know what strange things people have heard, but don't do that. Just ask them what they need. If they can tell you, they sometimes when people have panic attacks, they have a hard time speaking, of course. But yeah, don't make any weird assumptions. And speak to them calmly, and keep your sentences short and simple and easy to understand. Maybe speak a little bit slower. Try not to overwhelm them. Be predictable and avoid surprises. Don't make any weird decisions. I think that is pretty obvious. Don't, if they're panicking, don't try to make them panic more. Often you can help a panic attack go smoother by helping the person through some breathing exercises, especially belly breathing. There's a lot of science behind focusing on your breathing and breathing slowly that can help reduce anxiety. So you can do some counting exercises. There's some GIFs online that I like to pull up sometimes to breathe with. But from personal experience, I can say breathing is very helpful for relieving anxiety. Anything to add to that? I don't know how much does your system suffer from anxiety troubles? I actually have no idea.
We actually have quite a bit of anxiety. We are hardly able to leave the house, actually, because of such severe social anxiety. But other types of anxiety other than social is at least a little bit better, but it's pretty extreme.
Yeah, I've heard about the social anxiety, but do you have like panic disorders?
We do get panic attacks.
For any alters? Any personal advice from your experience on that?
Well, in our experience, I will say the bag just makes it worse. Blowing into a paper bag for us makes it worse. However, we have found that aromatherapy is a huge help for us. There are some, I know that you can find them online and such. There are some bottles, roll-on bottles, like kind of like chapstick, but also not, that you can roll it onto your arms and it'll distribute a little bit of essential oil that's safe for skin, and you can just sniff it, and it helps us a lot. Especially lavender is especially a good scent. It is quite often used in aromatherapy for calming down anxiety and stress and just relieving all of that. But really any scent that you like could work.
Oh, I've never heard of that. So yes, that's another good advice if your friend suffering from a panic attack has some sort of aromatherapy on them. You can help them to utilize that.
Right. With any mental illness, there comes some insecurity. That is especially true with DID, because a core part of the illness is feeling like you're fake. DID is supposed to be covert at first. You're not supposed to really know about it, and then when you realize you have it, your brain just won't believe it, because how could such a bad thing have happened to me to create this? and your brain just still doesn't want to acknowledge that it has alters. So, what can you do to help with that? Well, first off, you can affirm their feelings. For instance, say, I understand why you feel like that, and reassure them. But I hope you believe me and I can see you and your alters as real people.
Yes, that's something I find myself saying quite a lot. I've also noticed from your system that there's a lot of alters who have trouble trusting other people, and I'll often try to reassure them that, I am a friend, I hopefully can be trusted, I see them as actual people and not fake or made up, but I do find myself saying it over and over quite a lot to a lot of different alters, and it's important to don't make the system feel bad for still not believing you, because DID is there because your system has been through a lot of trauma and it's not going to be fixed in one day.
Not to mention, to add on to the trauma, there's people that could have been your friends might have called your system fake once you tried to come out to them about it. Hell, your parents could have said, oh, no, you cannot be a system because XYZ. And that can ruin someone's security and other people trusting them.
Yeah, coming out as a system is a very, very sticky situation. I think that might be a good point for a future episode, don't you think?
Yes, I do agree. Thank you.
So I think that about covers some of the really key points that you should keep in mind when you're interacting with a system. It might take a little bit of extra work to be friends with a system, but it's definitely worth it. You've sort of got one body with a whole bunch of friends. It's like, make one friend get 20 or 30 for free. So, in my opinion, it's definitely worth it.
Once again, this has been Scarlet.
And Micah.
And we will see you in the next episode. Thank you for watching. Bye!
Thank you for watching Plurality Posse. If you like what you saw, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. You can find out more about our podcast on our Tumblr, scarlettwilight.tumblr.com. That link will also be in the description. We're hoping to have a new episode for you in 1 month, so make sure you don't miss it.